touch him again, and I swear you'll regret it." 3 men froze mid-stomp, boots dripping with another man's blood. Their heads snapped toward the sound, expecting backup, maybe a cop. But the fog parted, and what stepped into the flickering streetlight made them pause for just a second before the laughter started. A little girl. Couldn't be older than 9. She wore a blue varsity jacket 3 sizes too big, sleeves hanging past her fingertips. Rain soaked her sneakers. Her hair clung to her face in wet strands. In her trembling hands, she gripped a worn rubber ball like it was the only weapon she had. Because it was. The first thug, tattoos crawling up his neck, bent over laughing. "Yo, what is this? Somebody's kid lost?" The second one wiped rain from his face, grinning. "Little girl thinks she's in a superhero movie or something." The third man, massive, shoulders like concrete blocks, took 2 heavy steps toward her. "Sweetheart, you better run back to Mommy before you end up just like this trash." He kicked the man at his feet. Hard. Blood splattered across the wet pavement. That man was Marco DeLuca, Mafia lieutenant, the kind of man who could end careers with a phone call, the kind of man entire neighborhoods feared. But right now he was choking on his own blood in a rain-soaked alley. And a 4th grader was his only hope. Lena planted her feet, cocked her arm back like she'd done 1,000 times on the pitcher's mound. Her voice cut through the rain, cold as steel. "Last warning. Walk away." They laughed harder. Biggest mistake they ever made. Welcome to MCW Tales, family. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to witness isn't just another street fight. This is the story of the night courage wore sneakers and changed the rules of power forever. To my day ones, my loyal family who've been here since the beginning, thank you. You're the reason these stories live. You're the reason we keep shining light into the darkest corners. Before we go any further, let me pray over you real quick. God, I'm asking you right now to cover every person watching this. Protect their family. Heal what's broken. Bless their finances, their health, their peace of mind. Give them courage when fear tries to take over. Let today be the day something shifts in their favor. In Jesus' name, amen. Now let's get into it. Because this isn't just a story about a girl saving a gangster. This is a story about what happens when innocence refuses to stay silent. When a single act of bravery cracks open the foundation of an empire. When the smallest hands throw the biggest change. 45 minutes earlier, Marco DeLuca sat across from Don Ricci in a room that smelled like cigar smoke and old money. Leather chairs, mahogany desk, oil paintings of dead men who'd built empires on broken backs. The Don leaned back, fingers steepled, eyes cold as winter. "You're telling me no?" Marco kept his voice steady. "I'm telling you there's a better way. The South District's been bled dry. We push any harder. There's nothing left to collect." "That's not your concern." Richie's tone dropped. "Your concern is doing what I tell you." "With respect, Don, squeezing families who can barely eat isn't strength. It's desperation." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Ricci's jaw tightened. The men standing by the door shifted their weight, hands drifting toward concealed weapons. Finally, Ricci smiled, but it wasn't warm. "You've been in this life long enough to know what loyalty looks like, Marco. It looks like obedience, not opinions." Marco stood. "I've given you 15 years of loyalty. Don't mistake caution for weakness. And don't mistake sentiment for wisdom." Ricci didn't rise. Didn't need to. "We're done here." Marco nodded once, turned, and walked out. His heart hammered against his ribs, but his face stayed stone. Pride wouldn't let him show anything else. Behind him, the door clicked shut. And in that click, something shifted. Something irreversible. The night air hit him like a slap, cold, damp. Marco buttoned his coat and descended the stone steps of Ricci's estate. His car sat at the curb, engine idling, driver waiting, but Marco waved him off. "Go home, Vincent. I'll walk." Vincent frowned through the window. "Boss, it's late. The South Side's—" "I said go home." The car pulled away, tail lights disappearing into the mist. Marco stood alone on the empty street, watching his breath curl into the darkness. Paranoia whispered at the edges of his mind. The meeting felt wrong. Ricci's smile felt wrong. The way those guards had looked at him felt wrong. But Marco DeLuca didn't run, didn't hide, didn't ride in armored cars through his own city like some terrified politician. He'd built his reputation on being untouchable. On walking streets, other men feared. Tonight would be no different. He turned down Archer Street, heading toward the heart of the South District. The shortcut through the industrial zone would cut 10 minutes off his walk. He knew every alley, every corner, every shadow, or so he thought. The alley stretched ahead like a throat, narrow, dark. Brick walls on both sides, slick with rain and years of grime. Dumpsters lined the edges. Broken glass crunched under his shoes. Marco's hand drifted to his inside pocket. The weight of his gun reassured him, just in case. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. A siren wailed blocks away. Normal city sounds. Nothing to worry about. Then the footsteps started behind him. Not casual, not accidental. Deliberate. Multiple. Moving fast. Marco's pulse spiked. He spun around, hand reaching for his weapon. The pipe caught him across the back of the skull before his fingers touched steel. Pain exploded white-hot through his brain. The world tilted sideways. Concrete rushed up to meet his face. He tasted copper, felt warmth spreading down his neck. Get up, move, fight. He tried. His body didn't respond. His vision swam, doubled, blurred. 3 shadows loomed over him, faces hidden in the darkness. But their posture said everything. Professional, efficient, paid to finish a job. Marco tried to speak. Blood filled his mouth. The first kick landed in his ribs. Something cracked. Air left his lungs in a rush. The second kick caught his kidney. Agony ripped through him. He curled into himself, instinct overriding pride, trying to protect vital organs. His hand clawed toward his gun. Almost there. A boot stomped down on his wrist. Bones snapped like dry wood. He screamed. "Should have listened to the Don," one of them said, voice muffled by a mask. Another kick, this one to his face. His cheekbone shattered. Blood sprayed across wet pavement. Marco fought back through the haze, grabbed an ankle, pulled hard. One attacker stumbled, cursed. Marco lunged, threw a wild punch that connected with someone's jaw. For 3 seconds, he was the fighter he used to be, the man who'd clawed his way up from nothing. Then the pipe came down again, and again, and again. His vision darkened at the edges, ribs broken, face unrecognizable, blood pooling beneath him. One of the men crouched down, grabbed Marco's hair, forced his head up. Through swollen eyes, Marco saw the tattoo on the man's forearm. Vance Syndicate, the rival gang. But that didn't make sense, unless— "Ricci sends his love," the man whispered. The words hit harder than the pipe ever could. Betrayal. Marco's own boss. The man he'd served for 15 years. The man whose empire he'd helped build with blood and loyalty, had ordered this. The man released his hair. Marco's face dropped back into the puddle of his own blood. Boots surrounded him, closing in for the final act. He tried to speak, tried to curse them, tried to pray. Nothing came out but a wet, choking sound. This was it. This was how Marco DeLuca died. Not in some blaze of glory, not defending his honor, but beaten like a dog in a forgotten alley because he dared to say no. The boots rose again, and then a voice cut through the rain. Small, young, impossible. Touch him again, and I swear you'll regret it. Lena Morales hated walking home in the rain. Not because she minded getting wet. She'd walked through worse. But rain meant fewer people on the streets, fewer witnesses, fewer chances someone would help if something went wrong. And in this neighborhood, something always went wrong eventually. She pulled her blue varsity jacket tighter, the sleeves hanging past her knuckles. Aunt Camilla's apartment was 6 blocks behind her now. Home was 3 blocks ahead. The fastest route cut through the industrial district. Abandoned warehouses, flickering streetlights, alleys that swallowed sound. Her sneakers splashed through puddles. Rain drummed against metal roofs. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled low and threatening. The streetlight ahead buzzed, flickered, died for 3 seconds, then sparked back to life. Lena's grip tightened on the rubber ball in her jacket pocket. Her dad had given it to her 2 years ago, back when his hands still smelled like motor oil and his laugh still filled their apartment. Before the crossfire took him. Before she learned that sometimes good people die simply because they're standing in the wrong place when bad people start shooting. She was almost past the alley when she heard it. Thud. Crack. A wet, meaty sound that made her stomach turn. Then grunting. Heavy breathing. The unmistakable rhythm of violence. Lena froze. "Keep walking," her inner voice screamed. "Don't look. Don't get involved. That's the rule. You know the rule." Her feet stayed planted. "Move, Lena. Whatever's happening in that alley isn't your problem." But her father's face flashed in her mind. The way he'd looked in the casket. The way the police had shrugged and said, "Wrong place, wrong time. No witnesses came forward." Nobody stepped in. Nobody helped. Nobody even called 911 until it was too late. Her hand found the ball in her pocket, pulled it out. The rubber was worn smooth from years of practice throws against the brick wall behind her building. Her dad used to call her Little Rocket because of her arm. "God gave you a gift, mija," he'd say. "Make sure you use it for something that matters." Thunder cracked overhead. Lena turned toward the alley entrance, took 1 step, then another. Rain ran into her eyes. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "This is insane. You're 9 years old. What are you going to do against grown men?" She didn't know. But she knew what happened when good people stayed silent. Through the mist, she saw them. 3 men circling something, someone, on the ground. Boots rising and falling, the sound of breaking bones, the wet rasp of someone choking on their own blood. Lena's hands started shaking. Turn around. Run. Get help. But help never came in time. She'd learned that the hardest way possible. She squeezed the ball until her knuckles went white, closed her eyes for just a second. "God," she whispered into the rain, "give me courage. Please. I'm really scared. But I can't just walk away. Not again. Never again." The wind picked up, howling through the alley like an answer. Lena opened her eyes, took a deep breath, and stepped into the shadows. Her voice cut through the rain, small but unbreaking. "Touch him again, and I swear you'll regret it." 3 heads turned toward her, and the world held its breath. They stared at her for exactly 2 seconds. Then the laughter started. The first man, tall, with a neck tattoo that crawled up to his jawline, bent over like she'd just told the funniest joke he'd ever heard. "Yo, what? Whose kid is this?" The second one, shorter but wider, wiped rain from his face. "Little girl wandered into the wrong movie scene or something." The third man, the leader, massive and scarred, muscles straining against his soaked jacket, took 3 heavy steps toward her. His boots splashed through puddles of rainwater and blood. Sweetheart, he said, voice dripping with mock concern. You better run back to your dolls before you end up right next to this piece of trash. He punctuated the sentence with a vicious kick to the man on the ground. The body jerked. Blood sprayed across wet concrete. Lena's stomach lurched, but she didn't move. The leader tilted his head, studying her like she was some strange insect. You deaf, kid? I said run. Lena planted her feet the way her dad taught her. Weight balanced, arm cocked back, ball gripped tight. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Last warning. Walk away. The laughter got louder, meaner. Oh, man, she thinks she's a superhero. Neck Tattoo slapped his knee. Little mama brought a toy to a murder, the shorter one wheezed between laughs. The leader's grin widened. What you gonna do with that ball, sweetheart? Bounce it at us? Try me, Lena said. Her arm trembled. Her heart screamed at her to run, but her feet stayed planted. I dare you. The leader's smile died. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. You got a death wish, kid? He took another step toward her. Lena's mind went quiet. Everything her father taught her on that cracked pitcher's mound behind their building flooded back. Focus on the target. Breathe. Release. She let the ball fly. It cut through the rain like a meteor. Crack. The sound echoed off brick walls. Sharp, clean, devastating. The leader's head snapped sideways. His legs buckled. He dropped to one knee, hand flying to his temple, eyes rolling back. For 3 heartbeats, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The leader swayed, tried to stand, collapsed face first into a puddle. Silence. Lena stood frozen, her throwing arm still extended, fingers tingling from the release. She couldn't believe what she'd just done. Neither could they. Neck Tattoo's jaw went slack. Did she just... She knocked out Vince, the shorter one whispered. With a ball. They looked at their unconscious leader. Then at the tiny girl in the oversized jacket. Then back at their leader. Lena reached into her backpack, pulled out another ball. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped it. There's more where that came from, she said, voice cracking but eyes blazing. Touch him again and find out. Neck Tattoo stepped backward. Yo, this is insane. This is insane. We weren't supposed to deal with no kid, the shorter one muttered, eyes darting between Lena and the alley entrance. Nobody said nothing about a kid. She's 9, Neck Tattoo hissed. She just dropped Vince, the other one shot back. Lena cocked her arm again. I don't miss twice. That did it. They broke. Grabbed their unconscious leader by the arms, started dragging him toward the far end of the alley. One of them kept looking back at Lena like she might sprout wings and chase them. This ain't over, Neck Tattoo called out, trying to salvage some shred of dignity. Lena took one step forward, ball raised. They ran faster. Within seconds, they'd vanished into the maze of alleys, dragging Vince's limp body through puddles and trash. Lena stood alone in the rain, chest heaving, arm still trembling from adrenaline and terror. Then she remembered. The man. She spun around. He was still crumpled on the ground, face destroyed, body broken. Rain washed blood away almost as fast as it pooled. Lena rushed over, dropped to her knees beside him. Hey, can you hear me? His eyes fluttered, barely open. One of them was swollen completely shut. The other stared at her through a haze of pain and confusion. Who? His voice was a wet rasp. Who are you? Lena brushed rain-soaked hair out of her face. Just someone who doesn't like bullies. Marco's one working eye focused on her. Really saw her. A child. Couldn't be more than 9, soaking wet, trembling, terrified, but standing. You saved me, he whispered. Don't talk, Lena said. You're hurt really bad. I need to get you out of here before they come back. Why? Marco breathed. Why would you? Because someone should have helped my dad, Lena said quietly, and nobody did. Thunder rolled overhead. Lightning flashed, freezing the moment in stark white. A broken Mafia boss and the little girl who rewrote the rules of the streets with a rubber ball and faith bigger than fear. This is MCW Tales family, where courage doesn't wait for permission. It waits for the moment. Getting Marco DeLuca out of that alley should have been impossible. He weighed at least twice what Lena did, maybe more. His body was dead weight, broken and bleeding, barely conscious. Every few steps he groaned, a sound that made Lena's chest tighten with panic. But impossible never stopped her before. She hooked her arms under his shoulders, planted her feet, and pulled. Her sneakers slipped on wet pavement. Her muscles screamed. But she didn't stop. Drag, rest, drag, rest. Come on, she whispered, more to herself than him. Just a little further. Marco's head lolled against her shoulder. Leave me, he rasped. Too dangerous. Shut up, Lena grunted, pulling harder. I didn't scare off 3 gang members just to leave you here. Blood left a trail behind them. Rain tried to wash it away, but there was too much. Lena's heart hammered. If they come back, if anyone sees us. The old bakery basement wasn't far. 2 buildings down, hidden entrance behind a dumpster. She'd found it months ago playing hide and seek with kids from her block. Nobody used it anymore. Perfect hiding spot. She dragged Marco down 3 concrete steps. His body bumped against each one. He cried out, couldn't help it, and Lena froze, listening for footsteps, voices, anything. Silence, just rain and distant sirens. The basement door hung crooked on rusted hinges. Lena shoved it open with her shoulder, pulled Marco inside, let the door swing shut behind them. Darkness swallowed them whole. She fumbled for the light switch she remembered, clicked it. A single bare bulb flickered to life, dim, buzzing, casting long shadows across concrete floors and abandoned shelving. Marco collapsed against the wall. His breathing came in shallow, wet gasps. Blood soaked through his suit, dripped onto the floor in steady rhythm. Don't die, Lena whispered. Please don't die. She shrugged off her jacket, balled it up, pressed it against the worst of the bleeding on his side. Her hands came away red. What do I do? What do I do? Her aunt was a nurse. Used to tell her stories about emergency rooms, about keeping pressure on wounds, about staying calm when everything inside you is screaming. Pressure. Keep pressure. Don't let go. Marco's hand caught her wrist, weak, trembling. You should go. I'm not leaving you. They'll look for me. Then they better not find you. Lena pressed harder. Marco hissed in pain but didn't pull away. What's your name? His good eye focused on her. Marco. I'm Lena. Lena, he repeated, like he was trying to memorize it. Why? My dad used to say God gives us gifts for a reason. Her voice cracked. Maybe this is mine. Maybe I was supposed to be here tonight. Sirens wailed closer. Lena's pulse jumped. Red and blue lights flickered through the crack under the door. Police. Right outside. She held her breath. Marco went completely still despite the pain. The sirens passed. Faded. Gone. Lena exhaled slowly. That was close. You're brave, Marco whispered. I'm terrified, Lena admitted. But my dad used to say courage isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing the right thing anyway. Marco's eye drifted closed. For a horrible second, Lena thought she'd lost him. Hey! She shook his shoulder. Stay with me, Marco. Don't you dare die in this basement. His eye opened. Barely. Bossy. For a kid. Someone has to be. She adjusted the jacket bandage, checked his breathing, still shallow but steady. My grandma lives 3 blocks from here. I can bring help, medicine. But you have to promise me you'll stay alive until I get back. Can't. Promise. Yes, you can. Lena's voice hardened. You're not dying tonight. I won't let you. Something shifted in Marco's expression, like he couldn't quite process this child, this 9-year-old stranger, fighting death itself to keep him breathing. Why do you care? He whispered. You don't know me. Lena thought about her father, about the way nobody came forward after he died, about empty street corners and cold silence. Because someone should care, she said simply. Even if you're a stranger, even if it's dangerous, somebody should always care. Rain hammered against the basement door. Thunder shook the walls. Marco's eye stayed locked on her face. You're different. My dad used to say that too. She smiled. Small. Sad. Right before he told me different isn't bad. It's just different. Your dad was right. He usually was. Lena squeezed his hand. I'm going to get help now. Don't move. Don't try to leave. Just stay alive. Can you do that? Marco nodded. Once. Barely. Lena stood, grabbed her bloody jacket. Looked back at the broken man slumped against the wall, a stranger she'd saved because nobody saved her father. I'll be back, she promised. I swear. She slipped out into the rain. The door closed behind her with a rusty groan, and Marco DeLuca, feared Mafia lieutenant, untouchable boss, broken man, whispered 2 words into the darkness. Thank you. For the first time in 15 years, he meant it with his whole heart. Marco woke to the smell of rubbing alcohol and prayers. His entire body felt like one massive bruise. Breathing hurt, thinking hurt, existing hurt. But he was alive. Easy, mijo. A woman's voice, older, firm, with the kind of authority that didn't need volume. You move too fast. You'll tear those stitches. Marco's working eye cracked open. Blurry shapes gradually sharpened into focus. He was lying on a narrow couch covered in worn blankets, yellowed wallpaper, a crucifix on the wall, photographs in mismatched frames, the soft buzz of a refrigerator, an apartment, small, old, clean, despite its age. Standing over him was an elderly woman with silver-streaked hair pulled into a tight bun. Reading glasses hung from a chain around her neck. Her hands, steady, scarred from years of labor, worked to rebandage his ribs. Where? Marco's voice came out like gravel. Where am I? My home, the woman said without looking up. Which you're bleeding all over, by the way. Marco tried to sit up. Pain exploded through his side. He collapsed back with a groan. I said, don't move. The woman pressed a hand to his chest, gentle but immovable. You got 3 cracked ribs, possible concussion, and more bruises than I can count. Lying still isn't a suggestion. His memory came back in fragments. The ambush, the betrayal, the beating, and then the girl, Marco rasped. There was a girl, Lena. The woman finally looked at him, and her eyes were hard as granite. My granddaughter, the one who dragged your broken body out of that alley and halfway across the neighborhood. Marco's heart sank. She's 9 years old. The woman's tone could have cut steel. 9. And she risked her life for yours. Shame crashed over Marco like a wave. I didn't ask her to. Of course you didn't. You were too busy being beaten to death by your own people. Marco went still. How did you... One of them said, Richie sends his love before you passed out, Lena told me. The woman tied off the bandage with practiced efficiency. So, Marco DeLuca, enforcer for the DeLuca crime family. The same family whose loan sharks have been bleeding this neighborhood dry for 10 years. Every word landed like a punch. Marco stared at the ceiling, unable to meet her eyes. I know who I am. Do you? The woman straightened, crossed her arms. Because the man I've heard about wouldn't need saving from a child. That man was untouchable, feared, powerful. That man was a fool, Marco whispered. On that, we agree. Silence stretched between them. Somewhere in the apartment, a clock ticked. Water dripped from a leaky faucet. Marco's gaze drifted around the room, noticed things he'd missed before. The patched furniture, the duct tape on the refrigerator handle, the cracked window sealed with cardboard and prayers. Poverty, the kind his family's business created. How long have you lived here? He asked quietly. 32 years. The woman moved to the kitchen, started making tea without asking if he wanted any. Raised 3 children in this apartment. Watched this neighborhood go from struggling to suffocating. Because of us. Because of choices. She poured hot water into mismatched mugs. People like you chose profit over people, chose fear over fairness. Marco closed his eyes. I'm sorry. Are you? The woman returned, set a mug on the table beside him. Or are you just sorry you ended up on this couch instead of in a grave? He didn't have an answer for that. Movement in the doorway. Lena appeared, hesitant, still wearing her rain-damp clothes. Her eyes were wide and uncertain, like she couldn't quite believe he was still alive. You woke up, she said softly. Because of you. Marco's voice cracked. You saved my life. Lena shrugged, trying to look brave, but her hands twisted together nervously. I couldn't walk away. Most people would have. Most people aren't my granddaughter, Abuela Rosa said, pride cutting through her stern tone. Sit, mija. You haven't eaten. Lena sat on a wobbly chair across from Marco. She looked so small, so young, and yet she'd faced down 3 killers with nothing but a rubber ball and faith. Why? Marco asked. Why risk everything for a stranger? Lena looked at her grandmother, then back at him. My dad died in a gang shootout 2 years ago. He was just fixing someone's car. Wrong place, wrong time. Nobody helped him. Everyone just ran away. Marco's chest tightened. I promised myself, Lena continued, voice barely above a whisper, that if I ever saw someone in trouble, I wouldn't run by thun. I wouldn't be like everyone else, even if I was scared. Tears burned Marco's eyes. When was the last time he'd cried? He couldn't remember. Abuela Rosa set a hand on Lena's shoulder. Maybe God put you in that alley tonight for a reason, Mr. DeLuca. Her voice was softer now, but no less powerful. Maybe he's reminding you who you hurt, who you've become. And maybe, giving you a chance to choose differently. Marco looked at the child who'd saved him, at the grandmother who'd sheltered him despite knowing exactly who he was, at the apartment his family's business had helped trap them in. And for the first time in 15 years, something inside him broke open, not with pain, with clarity. I don't deserve this, he whispered. I don't deserve your kindness. No, Abuela Rosa agreed. You don't. But Lena gave it to you anyway. Now the question is, what are you going to do with it? The clock ticked. The faucet dripped. And Marco DeLuca began to understand that sometimes salvation doesn't come from power or money or respect. Sometimes it comes from a 9-year-old girl with a rubber ball and a heart bigger than the entire broken world. Marco left before sunrise. His body screamed with every movement. Ribs taped, face still swollen, but he couldn't stay. Dangerous for them, dangerous for him. Abuela Rosa had left fresh bandages on the table beside him. No note, just bandages and a bottle of pain medication with a dosage written in neat handwriting on a slip of paper. Kindness from a woman who had every reason to hate him. Marco dressed slowly, biting back groans. His reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror was unrecognizable. Purple bruises, stitches, dried blood in his hairline. He looked like exactly what he was, a man who'd been beaten within an inch of his life by his own people. He stepped into the hallway. Lena's door was cracked open. She slept curled under a thin blanket, one arm hanging off the edge of the narrow bed. Peaceful, innocent, the girl who saved a monster. Marco pulled the door quietly closed and left. 3 blocks away, sitting in a borrowed car with tinted windows, Marco made the call. "Vincent, it's me." "Boss?" His second-in-command's voice cracked with relief. "Jesus Christ, we thought you were dead. Ricci's been spreading word that—" "I know what Ricci's been saying." Marco's voice was stone. "Listen carefully. The Morales family, grandmother and granddaughter, South District, corner of Alvarez and 5th. I know the building. They're under my protection. Full protection. Anyone touches them, looks at them wrong, even thinks about them. You come to me first. Understand?" Silence on the other end. Then, "Boss, what happened?" "Do you understand, Vincent?" Yeah, I understand." "Good. And Vincent, this stays quiet. No crew talk, no questions, just protection." "You got it." Marco ended the call, leaned his head back against the seat. Pain radiated through his skull, but underneath it, something else stirred. Something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Real purpose. Not power, not fear. Debt. The groceries started appearing 3 days later. Lena came home from school to find her grandmother unpacking bags on the kitchen counter. Real food. Fresh vegetables, milk that hadn't expired, bread that wasn't day-old discount. "Abuela, where did this come from?" Rosa's face was unreadable. "A delivery." "From who? Does it matter?" Rosa arranged canned goods in the cupboard. "We don't look gift horses in the mouth, mija." But Lena noticed the envelope tucked beneath the bread. Thick, unmarked. She noticed the medical supplies that appeared in their bathroom cabinet. Professional grade. Expensive. She noticed the black car that idled at the end of their block sometimes, just watching. Not threatening, just there. "It's him, isn't it?" Lena asked one evening. "Marco." Rosa didn't look up from her sewing. "Eat your dinner." "Why is he doing this?" "Because he has a debt." Rosa's needle paused. "And maybe because someone reminded him what it means to be human." Lena picked at her food, thinking. "Is he bad, like everyone says?" Rosa set down her sewing, looked at her granddaughter with ancient, tired eyes. "People aren't just bad or just good, mija. We're complicated. We make choices. Some choices hurt people. Some choices help them. Marco DeLuca has made many bad choices. But maybe he's trying to make a different choice now." Rosa touched Lena's cheek gently. "Because of you." 2 weeks in, Lena found him waiting outside her school. Not obvious, not threatening, just leaning against a lamppost across the street, wearing sunglasses that didn't quite hide the fading bruises. She crossed toward him slowly, backpack bouncing. "You're not supposed to be here." "I know." Marco pushed off the lamppost, moved stiffly, still healing. "I just wanted to make sure you were okay." "I'm fine." "Good." He nodded, awkward, like he didn't know how to talk to children. "The groceries, the money, if it's too much, or if your grandmother wants me to stop—" "She won't say it, but she's grateful," Lena interrupted. "We both are." Marco's jaw worked. "I'm the one who's grateful. You saved my life." "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." He looked down at her. Really looked. "Nobody's ever done something like that for me, especially not someone who had every reason to walk away." Lena shrugged, uncomfortable with the weight in his voice. "My dad always said we're supposed to help each other." "Your dad was right." Marco paused. "I never got to tell you. I'm sorry about what happened to him. I'm sorry nobody helped." Lena's throat tightened. "It's not your fault." "Maybe not directly, but men like me, we helped build the world where people are too scared to help. That is my fault." They stood in silence. Kids streamed past them, laughing, shouting. Normal kid sounds. Finally, Lena asked, "Are you going to be okay? Your injuries, I mean." "I'll heal." Marco managed something close to a smile. "Thanks to you." "And Abuela. She did most of the work." "Both of you, then." Another pause. Then Marco pulled something from his pocket. A rubber ball, brand new, red and white, professional grade. "For you," he said. "Since your old one, well, it saved my life. Figured you deserved an upgrade." Lena took it, turning it over in her hands. Perfect weight. Perfect grip. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to." Marco's voice softened. "You got a hell of an arm, kid. Don't lose that." Lena squeezed the ball, looked up at this broken, dangerous, complicated man who was trying, maybe for the first time, to do something right. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything. The food, the money, all of it. It's not enough. Will never be enough. But it's a start." He turned to leave, made it 3 steps before Lena called out, "Marco?" He looked back. "My dad used to take me to practice my pitching. Every Saturday." She bounced the new ball once, twice. "Maybe, if you're not busy, you could come sometime?" Something shifted in Marco's face, like ice cracking, like sunlight breaking through. "Yeah," he said, voice rough. "Yeah, I'd like that." Lena smiled. Small, but real. And Marco DeLuca walked away knowing that somehow, impossibly, a 9-year-old girl with a rubber ball had just given him something he thought he'd lost forever. A reason to be better. The Vance Syndicate held court in an abandoned meatpacking plant on the east side. Concrete floors stained with decades of blood, animal and otherwise. The kind of place where screams got swallowed by rusted machinery and forgotten. Tommy Vance sat at a metal table smoking a cigarette, listening to his men explain how they'd failed. "So let me get this straight." His voice was calm. Too calm. "You 3, grown men, armed, experienced, got chased off by a child?" The 2 standing enforcers shifted uncomfortably. Vince, the one Lena had knocked out, still had a knot the size of a golf ball on his temple. "Boss, it wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" Tommy stubbed out his cigarette. "Because what I'm hearing is, you left Marco DeLuca alive, ran from a 4th grader, and now the whole city's laughing at us." "Nobody's laughing, boss." "Everyone's laughing." Tommy's fist slammed the table. "I got texts, calls, jokes. Vance boys scared of little girls now. That's what they're saying. You know what that does to our reputation? Vince touched his temple gingerly. The kid had an arm like a cannon. I don't care if she threw like a major league pitcher, she's 9 years old. Tommy stood, paced, jaw tight with fury. And Marco DeLuca? He should be dead. Instead, he's alive, protected, and making us look weak. We can fix this, the taller enforcer said quickly. We know where he's been going. We know about the family that hit him. Tommy stopped pacing. The Morales family? Grandmother and a kid. Same kid who dropped Vince. A slow smile spread across Tommy's face. Cold. Calculated. So, Marco's got a soft spot now. Interesting. You want us to send a message? Oh, we're sending more than a message. Tommy lit another cigarette. We're sending a lesson. Nobody embarrasses the Vance syndicate. Not mafia bosses. Not little girls. Nobody. Across town, Marco's crew gathered in their usual spot, a social club that fronted as a legitimate business but fooled exactly no one. Vincent stood at the bar nursing whiskey while 4 other men played cards at a corner table. The conversation had started casual. Now it was anything but. I'm just saying, Carlo muttered, studying his cards. The boss has been acting strange since the ambush. Strange how? Vincent's tone carried warning. Strange like soft. Carlo glanced up. First, he puts some random family under protection. Won't even tell us why. Then he stops the collections in their neighborhood. Now he's canceling debt runs that were already scheduled. Boss has his reasons, Vincent said flatly. What reasons? Another man, Frankie, tossed a card down. We're enforcers. We enforce. That's the business. But lately Marco's treating it like a charity. Vincent set his glass down hard. You questioning his judgment? I'm questioning if he still has the stomach for this life. Carlo's voice dropped. Come on, Vince. You've heard the whispers same as us. He got beaten down by the Vance boys. Some kid saved him. Now he's playing guardian angel? That's not the Marco we know. Maybe he's evolving, Vincent said. Or maybe he's weak. Frankie leaned back. Weakness in this business gets people killed. Gets us killed. Careful. Vincent's eyes went hard. You're talking about our boss. I'm talking about survival. Frankie held his gaze. Don Ricci's already asking questions. You think he's happy about Marco going rogue? Because I guarantee you he's not. The room went quiet. The name hung in the air like smoke. What kind of questions? Vincent asked slowly. Carlo and Frankie exchanged looks. Then Carlo said, the kind where Ricci's wondering if Marco's still fit to lead this crew. The kind where he's taking meetings with Tommy Vance. Vincent's blood ran cold. What meetings? Private ones. Real quiet. But word gets around. Carlo tossed his cards down. I'm not trying to start trouble, Vince. I'm trying to keep us alive. Because if Ricci and Vance are talking, that's not good for any of us. Especially not for Marco. Vincent grabbed his coat. Meeting's over. All of you go home. Say nothing to nobody. Understand? Vince, I said go home. They went. Vincent pulled out his phone, dialed Marco. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Boss, it's me. We got a problem. Call me back. Now. He hung up. Stared at his reflection in the bar mirror. Saw a man caught between loyalty and survival. And for the first time in 15 years of service, Vincent wondered which one would win. In his private office, Don Ricci poured 2 glasses of expensive scotch. Tommy Vance sat across from him, relaxed, confident, the kind of confidence that came from holding all the cards. So we have an understanding? Ricci asked. We do. Tommy accepted the glass. Your territories, my muscle. 50-50 split on profits. And Marco DeLuca? is no longer your concern. Ricci sipped his drink. Consider him retired. Violently retired? Does it matter? Tommy smiled. Not particularly. Long as the message is clear. Nobody makes us look weak. Not him, not some kid. Nobody. The Morales family. Leverage. Tommy swirled his scotch. We touch them. Marco comes running. We take him out, the family goes quiet, and everyone remembers why crossing us is fatal. Ricci nodded slowly. When? Soon. Very soon. Tommy raised his glass. To new partnerships. Ricci clinked glasses. To new partnerships. They drank. And in that moment, Marco DeLuca's fate was sealed, not by enemies on the street, but by the man he'd served faithfully for 15 years. Betrayal always cuts deepest from the inside. Lena smelled the spray paint before she saw the damage. She'd stayed late at school, working on a science project. The walk home took longer than usual because she'd stopped to practice throws against the warehouse wall. Her new ball had perfect weight, perfect grip. The sun was setting when she turned onto her street. That's when the chemical smell hit her. Sharp, bitter, wrong. Her steps slowed. Their family store, the tiny corner shop where Abuela sold groceries, handled Western Union transfers, and served as the neighborhood's unofficial community center, had its security gate ripped half off. The windows were smashed. Glass glittered on the sidewalk like broken teeth. And across the front wall, in blood-red spray paint 3 feet high, "Stay out of our streets." Lena's backpack slipped from her shoulder, hit the ground. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She ran forward, her sneakers crunched over glass. The door hung crooked, kicked in. Inside was worse. Shelves toppled, products smashed and scattered. The cash register torn open, empty. Photographs of her father, the ones Abuela kept behind the counter, ripped and trampled. Everything destroyed. Everything. Lena's legs gave out. She sank to her knees among the wreckage, glass biting through her jeans. This was her fault. She'd stepped into that alley. She'd saved Marco. And now... "Mija!" Abuela Rosa rushed in, face pale, hands shaking. She grabbed Lena by the shoulders. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" "I just got here, Lena's voice cracked. "Abuela, the store. They destroyed everything." Rosa pulled her close, fierce and protective. "Shh. Things can be replaced. You can't. That's all that matters." But Lena felt her grandmother trembling, saw the way her eyes moved over decades of work turned to ruins. This store was their livelihood, their survival, their connection to the neighborhood. Gone. "This is because of me," Lena choked out. "Because I saved him." "This is because evil men want to stay evil," Rosa corrected firmly. "Don't you dare blame yourself." But Lena couldn't stop the guilt crushing her chest. "We should call the police," she managed. Rosa's expression hardened. "And tell them what? That we made enemies? They'll write a report and nothing will happen. It never does in this neighborhood." "Then what do we do?" Rosa looked around at the destruction, at 32 years of community and care smashed to pieces in one night. "We survive, like we always do. Together." Lena convinced her grandmother not to tell anyone. Not the neighbors, not the police. Just clean up and pretend. But pretending was exhausting. They worked until midnight, sweeping glass, righting shelves, salvaging what they could. Abuela's hands bled from broken bottles. Lena's arms ached from lifting. Neither complained. When they finally went upstairs to their apartment, Lena collapsed onto her bed, still wearing her dirty clothes. She clutched the rubber ball Marco had given her and stared at the ceiling. "This is my fault. All of it. Sleep didn't come." Marco found out at 3 a.m. Vincent's call woke him from nightmares of the alley. "Boss, the Morales store. It's been hit." Marco was dressed and out the door in 90 seconds. He arrived to find the security gate still hanging crooked, the spray paint message glaring under streetlights. Vincent stood guard outside with 2 other men. "When?" Marco demanded. "Yesterday evening. They've been inside cleaning. Nobody called the cops." "Vance?" "Has to be. Message matches their style." Vincent gestured to the spray paint. "It's about you, boss. About what happened in the alley." Marco's jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. He'd brought this on them. His debt. His past. His enemies. A 9-year-old girl had saved his life, and this was how the streets repaid her. "Get a crew," Marco said, voice deadly calm. "I want this place rebuilt by sunrise. New security gate, new windows, new everything, better than it was before." "Boss, that's 8 hours. Then you better work fast." Marco pulled out his phone. "I'll get contractors. You handle security. Nobody touches this building again. Ever. Am I clear?" "Crystal. And Vincent? Find out who did this. Names. Addresses. Everything." Vincent nodded, already making calls. Marco stood alone in front of the ruined store, staring at that message in blood-red paint. "Stay out of our streets." "No," he said quietly to the empty street. "These are her streets now. And I'll burn this whole city down before I let anyone hurt her again." Morning light filtered through Lena's window. She woke still wearing yesterday's clothes, body aching, heart heavy. For a moment, she considered staying in bed, hiding from everything. Then she heard it. Voices, machinery, the sound of work. Lena rushed to her window, looked down at the street, and froze. The store's security gate gleamed new in the morning sun. Workers installed fresh glass windows. Someone was repainting the front wall, covering the spray paint with crisp white. A delivery truck unloaded supplies, shelves, products, a new register. And idling at the curb, quiet as a shadow, a black car, Marco's car. Lena pressed her hand against the window glass, her throat tight. He'd come. He'd fixed everything. He'd stayed. The passenger window of the black car rolled down. Marco looked up, met her eyes, nodded once. A silent promise. "You saved me. Now I save you." Lena nodded back. And despite everything, the fear, the guilt, the danger, she smiled. Because for the first time since her father died, someone had kept their promise. Someone had stayed. The numbers didn't lie. Marco sat in his office, staring at collection reports that Vincent had left on his desk. 3 weeks of reduced income, debts forgiven, protection payments waived, all in the Morales neighborhood. His phone buzzed. Carlo's name flashed on the screen. Marco ignored it. 3rd time today Carlo had called. He knew what the conversation would be. Concern about money, questions about judgment, whispers about weakness. Let them whisper. Marco pulled up a map of the South District on his laptop. Red pins marked every business his family collected from. 23 shops. 23 families squeezed for money they barely had. One by one, he started removing pins. The bakery where Mrs. Chen worked 16-hour days? Debt forgiven. The mechanic shop run by the Rodriguez brothers? Protection payment waived. The bodega where teenagers bought candy after school? Collections stopped. His phone buzzed again. This time, Vincent. Marco answered. "Yeah. Boss, we need to talk about the South District numbers." "What about them?" "They're down 40%. Vincent's voice was careful. "The crew's asking questions. Ricci's asking questions. We can't just..." "Watch me." Marco closed his laptop. Those families have been bled dry for years. It stops now. Boss? Is there a problem, Vincent? Silence. Then, no, boss. No problem. Good. Anything else? Yeah, actually, Lena called. Asked if you were still coming to practice today. Marco checked his watch. Saturday. He'd promised. Tell her I'll be there in 20. He hung up before Vincent could respond. The makeshift pitcher's mound was just a chalked circle behind the neighborhood community center. Cracked concrete, faded markings. But to Lena, it was sacred ground. Her father had brought her here every Saturday, taught her how to plant her feet, how to follow through, how to put everything into the release. Now Marco stood where her father once stood, catching her throws with a borrowed mitt that was 2 sizes too small for his hands. Again, he called. And remember, power comes from your legs, not your arm. Lena wound up. Threw. The ball smacked into Marco's glove hard enough to sting. Better, he said, tossing it back. But you're still dropping your elbow. Keep it up. Higher. Like this? Lena adjusted her form. Perfect. Now throw. She did. This time the ball flew straighter, faster. Marco had to brace himself to catch it. Hell of an arm, he muttered, shaking out his hand. My dad said the same thing. Lena caught the ball he tossed back. He said I could play college ball if I kept practicing. Your dad was right. Marco shifted his stance. You've got natural talent, real power. Just needs refining. They practiced for another 30 minutes, throw after throw. Marco corrected her form, praised her accuracy, pushed her to throw harder. It felt normal, almost peaceful. Then Lena asked, Why are you really doing this? Marco lowered the glove. Doing what? All of it. The store, the protection. Teaching me to throw. She held the ball, not throwing. You don't owe us this much. I owe you everything. Marco's voice was quiet but firm. You saved my life when you should have walked away. That's not a debt I can repay with groceries and window repairs. Then what are you trying to repay it with? Marco considered the question, looked at this 9-year-old who'd somehow become the mirror showing him who he'd become versus who he could be. I'm trying to be someone worth saving, he said finally. Someone your dad would have approved of. Lena's eyes got shiny. She looked away quickly, pretending to adjust her grip. He would have liked you. The version of you I'm seeing now, I mean. Yeah? Yeah. He always said people deserve second chances, even when they mess up really bad. I messed up more than really bad, kid. I helped destroy neighborhoods, hurt families. Marco gestured to the rundown community center, the cracked playground. Places like this, my family helped keep them broken. But you're fixing it now. Trying to. Marco tossed the ball back. 1 pitch at a time. Lena caught it, smiled despite the heavy conversation. That's really corny. Yeah, well, I'm new at the whole redemption thing. Give me a break. She laughed. Actually, laughed. The sound carried across the empty lot. Pure, genuine, alive. And Marco realized it was the first time he'd heard a child laugh in his presence without fear underneath it. All right, Lena said, winding up again. Last throw. My best one. Let's see it. She took a breath, planted her feet exactly how he'd taught her, kept her elbow up, followed through with her whole body. The ball flew like a missile. Marco caught it, but the impact drove him back a step. His hand went numb. Damn, he breathed. Language, Lena said primly, walking over. Abuela says curse words are lazy vocabulary. Marco laughed, a real laugh that came from somewhere deep and genuine. Your grandmother terrifies me more than Don Ricci ever could. She should. She's scarier. They gathered the equipment in comfortable silence. As they walked back toward the street, Lena said casually, Carlo and Frankie stopped by the store yesterday. Marco went still. Did they bother you? No, but they weren't friendly either. They just stared, like they were trying to figure something out. Danger prickled at the base of Marco's skull. If they come back, I'll call Vincent, Lena finished. I know. He gave me his number. Good. Marco's mind was already working through scenarios. Carlo and Frankie showing up unannounced wasn't coincidence. It was reconnaissance, which meant his crew was fracturing, which meant Ricci was making moves. Marco? Lena's voice pulled him back. Are you in trouble? Because of me? He looked down at her worried face and lied. No. Everything's fine. She didn't believe him. He could tell, but she let it go. Same time next week? She asked. Same time next week, Marco confirmed. She waved and headed home, backpack bouncing. Marco stood alone in the fading light, watching her go. His phone buzzed. Don Ricci's name on the screen. Meeting. Tomorrow. Non-negotiable. Marco deleted the message. Tomorrow everything would come to a head. But tonight? Tonight he'd taught a kid to throw better, made her laugh. Been someone worth her trust. For now, that was enough. The meeting room smelled like expensive cigars and coming violence. Don Ricci sat at the head of a long mahogany table, fingers steepled, expression unreadable. Around him, 5 captains from the DeLuca family. Men Marco had worked alongside for years. Men who wouldn't meet his eyes. Marco entered last, door clicking shut behind him with the finality of a cell locking. Vincent stood by the wall, jaw tight, hand resting near his concealed weapon. Marco, glad you could join us. Ricci's tone was pleasant. Too pleasant. Have a seat. Marco remained standing. I'll stand. Suit yourself. Ricci pulled a folder across the table, opened it. Let's talk numbers. South District collections are down 43% over the last month. Protection payments have been restructured without authorization. Debts forgiven without consultation. I made decisions that needed making, Marco said evenly. You made decisions that cost us money. Ricci looked up, eyes hard. Money that flows to all of us, not just you. The other captains shifted. Carlo spoke up. With respect, boss, we're in the business of collecting, not charity. These changes, they make us look weak. They make us look human, Marco countered. We're not supposed to be human, Frankie said. We're supposed to be feared. Fear without respect is just terrorism. Marco's voice stayed level. And I'm done terrorizing families who can barely feed themselves. Noble, Ricci closed the folder, but impractical. This business runs on control. Control requires consequences. Consequences require fear. There are other ways. Are there? Ricci leaned back. Tell me, Marco, this new philosophy of yours, does it have anything to do with a certain family in the South District? Perhaps a grandmother and her granddaughter? The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Careful, Marco said quietly. Or what? Ricci smiled. You'll defend their honor? How touching. How completely unlike the man I've known for 15 years. People change. Not in this life, they don't. Ricci stood, walked to the window overlooking the city. You know what I think happened? I think that beating in the alley did more damage than we realized. I think it broke something in you, made you soft, made you forget who you are. I know exactly who I am. Do you? Ricci turned. Because the Marco DeLuca I knew would have handled this situation very differently. The old Marco would have seen that family as leverage, not charity cases. He would have understood that in this business, sentiment is weakness. Mercy is suicide. The old Marco was wrong, Marco said, about a lot of things. The old Marco was useful. Ricci's voice hardened. This new version, this bleeding heart act, it's a problem I can't ignore. Then cut me loose. The room went silent. Even Vincent looked shocked. Ricci studied Marco for a long moment, then he laughed, cold, humorless. You'd like that, wouldn't you? Walk away clean, start fresh, maybe play father figure to some kid who doesn't know better than to trust a killer. What do you want, Ricci? I want you to remember your place. Ricci returned to his chair. I want you to understand that your little redemption arc is over. Starting immediately, collections resume in full. Protection payments return to previous levels. And your friendship with the Morales family ends. No! The word hung in the air like a thrown knife. Carlo stood. Boss, you can't just... I can, Marco interrupted. And I am. The Morales family stays protected. The South District policies stay in place. This is not negotiable. Everything is negotiable, Ricci said softly. Especially when I'm holding all the cards. What cards? Ricci pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, turned it toward Marco. Security camera footage played. Marco and Lena at the pitcher's mound, laughing, teaching. The timestamp read yesterday. Touching, Ricci said, but also dangerous, because now everyone knows about your soft spot, including our competitors. Marco's blood ran cold. You've been watching them. I've been protecting my investment. Ricci pocketed his phone. See, while you've been playing hero, I've been having conversations, productive conversations, with Tommy Vance. Vincent straightened. What? The Vance Syndicate and the DeLuca family are merging operations, Ricci announced casually. A partnership that will make us both stronger, more profitable, more feared. You're aligning with the people who tried to kill me, Marco said, voice deadly quiet. Actually, Marco, I'm the one who tried to kill you. Ricci's smile was a blade. The Vance boys were just my subcontractors. And before you get all self-righteous, understand, it wasn't personal. It was business. You were questioning too much, resisting too much. Becoming a problem I needed to solve. Betrayal was a familiar pain, but this cut deeper than the alley ever could. So what now? Marco asked. Now you have a choice. Ricci stood, buttoned his jacket. Option 1. You fall in line, resume your duties, forget about the Morales family, prove you're still the enforcer I need, and maybe, I let you keep breathing. Option 2? There is no option 2, because if you walk out of here defiant, if you continue this crusade, I will personally ensure that everyone you've tried to protect suffers for it. The grandmother, the child, every family in that neighborhood you've suddenly grown fond of. Ricci's eyes were empty of mercy. And I'll make you watch before I put you in the ground next to them. The other captains looked away, complicit, silent. Only Vincent met Marco's eyes. A question there, waiting. Marco stood at the crossroads. Submit and betray everything Lena had inspired in him, or resist and paint a target on everyone he'd tried to save. I need time, Marco said finally. You have until tomorrow night. Ricci headed for the door. After that, the Vance Syndicate handles the Morales problem for me. And trust me, they won't be as merciful as I'm being. He left. The captains followed. Soon, only Marco and Vincent remained. Boss, Vincent said quietly, what are you going to do? Marco stared at the empty chair where Ricci had sat, where his boss, his mentor, his brother-in-arms for 15 years, had just threatened to murder a child to keep him compliant. I'm going to do what I should have done years ago, Marco said. Which is? Choose the right side. Finally. He walked out into the night, knowing that tomorrow the city would burn. The only question was, who'd light the match? Marco found Eddie in the parking garage behind their usual meeting spot, loading boxes into his trunk at 2 a.m. Not suspicious on its own. Plenty of legitimate reasons to move inventory late at night. Except Eddie wasn't supposed to be working tonight. And those boxes weren't theirs. Eddie! The younger man jumped, nearly dropped what he was holding. Spun around, eyes wide. Boss, I wasn't expecting... Clearly. Marco stepped out of the shadows. Vincent emerged behind him, blocking the exit. Want to tell me what you're doing? Just moving some personal stuff. My lease is up and... Don't. Marco's voice cut like glass. I've been doing this too long. You're a terrible liar. Eddie's face drained of color. His hand drifted toward his waistband. I wouldn't, Vincent said quietly, gun already drawn. Eddie froze. Boss, I can explain. Then explain. Marco crossed his arms. Explain why Vincent's been watching you meet with Vance Syndicate members 3 times this week. Explain why our security routes keep getting compromised right after you learn them. Explain why Ricci knew about my schedule changes before I told anyone except you. Eddie's shoulders sagged. Caught. Cornered. They offered me a way out. A way out? Marco's laugh was bitter. This is the life, Eddie. There is no out. You know that. They said if I helped them, they'd relocate me. New city. Clean slate. Enough money to disappear. Eddie's voice cracked. I got a kid on the way, boss. A daughter. I don't want her growing up in this world. So you sold us out? I sold you out. Eddie met his eyes. Ricci wanted intel on your movements, your protection routes. Said you were becoming a problem. Vance wanted to know about the Morales family. Marco went still. What did you tell them about the Morales family? Everything. The girl's schedule, her school, her route home, the grandmother's routines. Eddie's voice dropped to a whisper. I'm sorry, boss, but they paid me 50 grand. That's enough to get my girl somewhere safe. Vincent stepped forward, gun raised. Say the word, boss. I'll handle it. Marco stared at Eddie. Saw himself 15 years ago, young, desperate, willing to do anything for survival. Making deals with devils because angels don't pay rent. Put the gun down. Vincent. Boss, I said put it down. Vincent lowered his weapon, confused. Marco approached Eddie slowly. You have a daughter coming. 3 months. Eddie's hands trembled. I want better for her than this. Better than what we do. I understand that. Marco's voice was quiet. I understand wanting to protect someone innocent from this world. But you made a choice, and that choice put another innocent in danger. I know. Eddie's eyes were wet. I know, and I'm sorry, but I can't take it back. Marco was silent for a long moment, then, here's what's going to happen. You're going to feed Vance and Ricci false information. Everything I tell you from now on will be a lie. You'll pass it along like you've been doing. Make them think you're still useful. Eddie blinked. You're not going to kill me? Not yet. Marco stepped closer. But if one word of real intel gets back to them, if that little girl gets hurt because you couldn't keep your mouth shut, I will find your daughter. Not to hurt her. To make sure she knows exactly what kind of man her father was. That she grows up knowing her dad sold out a 9-year-old for money. Eddie's face went pale. Boss, do we understand each other? Yes. Eddie's voice was barely audible. Yes, boss. Good. Now get out of my sight. Eddie ran, literally ran to his car and peeled out of the garage. Vincent holstered his gun. You sure about this, boss? Letting him live is a mistake. I know. Marco watched the taillights disappear. But he's got a kid on the way. Maybe if someone had shown my father mercy once, things would have been different. Or maybe he'll get us all killed. Maybe. Marco pulled out his phone. But if Lena taught me anything, it's that mercy matters, even when it's stupid. Vincent shook his head. You're getting soft. Yeah, Marco agreed. Probably going to get me killed. But as he walked back to his car, he couldn't shake the feeling that Eddie's betrayal was just the beginning, that the storm was coming, that mercy, even necessary mercy, always had a price. And tomorrow, someone would try to collect. Lena first noticed the black sedan on Tuesday morning, parked across from her school, tinted windows, engine running, two shapes inside, watching. Not Marco's car. She knew his by now. This one was wrong, predatory. She mentioned it to her teacher, Mrs. Kapoor, who frowned and called the principal. By the time they looked, the car was gone. Probably just someone's parent, Mrs. Kapoor said, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Wednesday, Lena saw the same car, different spot, same presence. And this time, a man in a gray hoodie stood on the corner opposite the playground during recess, pretending to check his phone. But his eyes tracked her movement the entire time. Thursday, 3 unfamiliar faces lingered outside the bodega where Abuela bought groceries. They scattered when Vincent's crew showed up, but the message was clear. We're watching. We're waiting. By Friday, Abuela Rosa had stopped pretending everything was fine. You walk straight home from school, she said that morning, gripping Lena's shoulders. No detours, no stopping. And if anyone approaches you, you scream and run, understand? Abuela, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. Rosa's voice was tight. The world is dangerous for girls like you. Girls who stand up. Girls who don't stay silent. Is this about Marco? Rosa's silence was answer enough. Lena grabbed her backpack, checked that her ball was inside. I'm not running. Dad didn't raise me to run. Your father is dead because he didn't run, Rosa said harshly. Then softer. Please, mija. Just for a while. Stay invisible. But Lena had tried invisible. It didn't save anyone. Marco paced his apartment like a caged animal, phone pressed to his ear. What do you mean you lost her? Just for 20 minutes, Vincent said quickly. She took a different route home from school. We picked her up again at the library. She shouldn't be taking different routes. Marco's hand tightened on the phone. She should be going straight home with 2 cars watching her every step. Boss, we're stretched thin. Ricci's pulled half our manpower for his meeting with Vance. I'm doing the best I can with... Do better. Marco's voice could have cut steel. Because if they touch that kid, I'll burn the city down. Starting with everyone who let it happen. Understood. Marco ended the call, stared out his window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Lena was walking home, vulnerable, targeted. Because of him. He'd brought this on her. His past. His enemies. His inability to walk away when he should have. God, if you're listening. The thought surprised him. Marco hadn't prayed since he was a child. Since before his mother died and his father taught him that power, not faith, kept you alive. But now, standing alone in his apartment, he closed his eyes. I don't deserve to ask for anything. I know what I am, what I've done. But that little girl, she's innocent. She saved me when she should have walked away. She reminded me what it means to be human. The words felt clumsy in his mind, unpracticed. If you're real, if you're listening, protect her. Whatever's coming, let it hit me instead. She doesn't deserve to pay for my sins. He opened his eyes. The city looked the same. No divine intervention, no miraculous sign, just a man, alone, asking the universe for mercy he knew he didn't deserve. His phone buzzed. Text from Vincent. She's home. Safe. 2 cars posted outside. Marco released a breath he didn't know he'd been holding, but the relief was temporary. He felt it in his bones, the way animals sense earthquakes before they hit. Something was coming, something inevitable. Ricci's ultimatum expired tomorrow. The alliance with Vance would be finalized, and Eddie was still out there, feeding information to people who wanted Lena dead. Marco had made too many enemies, protected too few allies, shown mercy when ruthlessness would have been smarter. All the mistakes were circling back, tightening like a noose. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Yeah. Marco DeLuca. Tommy Vance's voice was smooth as poison. Tomorrow night. Pier 17. Come alone and we talk. Bring backup, and we visit that little hero of yours instead. The line went dead. Marco stood in the silence, understanding with perfect clarity. The trap was set, and he was walking into it willingly, because the alternative was letting Lena face it alone. And that wasn't an option. Not anymore. Saturday came wrapped in false calm. Marco woke early, checked his weapons, called Vincent. Tonight, Pier 17, Vance wants a meeting. That's a trap, boss. I know. So we bring everyone, full crew, show them we're not... No. Marco loaded his gun, muscle memory from 1,000 similar mornings. He said, come alone or they go after Lena. I'm not risking that. Boss, if you walk into that pier alone, you're dead. Maybe. Marco holstered the weapon. But if I don't, she's dead. That's not a choice. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. What do you want me to do? Keep eyes on the Morales apartment. Full detail. Nobody gets within a block of that building. You got it. And Vincent, if something happens to me tonight, if I don't make it back, you get that family out of the city. Somewhere Ricci and Vance can never find them. Promise me. Boss. Promise me. Vincent. I promise. Marco ended the call, looked at himself in the mirror, saw a man walking toward his own execution, but also saw something else. Someone willing to die for the right reason. Better late than never. The setup was elegant in its simplicity. Eddie received a text at noon. Boss needs you at the warehouse. Security detail. Big meeting tonight. He showed up, eager to prove he could still be trusted. Marco's words about his daughter had haunted him all week. Maybe this was his chance to make things right. The warehouse was empty when he arrived. Just shadows and silence. Then the van pulled up. Vance Syndicate. Eddie, right? The tall one stepped out. We got a job for you. Eddie's stomach dropped. I'm done. I told them I'm done feeding intel. This isn't about intel. The man smiled. This is about making sure Marco's security detail doesn't follow him tonight. You're going to disable the GPS on his backup cars, cut communication, make sure he's alone when he arrives at Pier 17. No. Eddie backed up. That's a death sentence. I'm not... The man pulled out a phone, showed Eddie a photo, his pregnant girlfriend leaving their apartment building. Pretty girl, the man said casually. Be a shame if something happened to her, to the baby. Eddie's world tilted. You wouldn't. We would. The man pocketed the phone. So here's how this works. You disable Marco's backup, tonight, or we visit your girl and show her exactly what happens to people who don't cooperate. Eddie's hands shook. I can't. He trusted me. Gave me a second chance. Then this is your way of saying thank you. The man tossed him a small device. GPS jammer, planted in Vincent's car, blocks all tracking, kills all communication within a 3-mile radius, active for 4 hours. If I do this, Marco dies. Probably. But your daughter lives, your girl lives. You get your 50 grand and disappear like we promised. The man leaned in close. Or you can play hero. See how that works out for everyone you love. Eddie stared at the device in his hand, a small piece of metal and circuitry that would seal a good man's fate, but save his daughter. I'm sorry, boss. I'm so sorry. He pocketed the jammer. Where's Vincent's car? Lena felt it before she saw anything. Walking home from the library, the air felt wrong. Too quiet. The usual street sounds, kids playing, cars passing, music from open windows, were muted, absent. Then she saw it. The black sedan, crawling down her street. Windows down, 2 men inside tracking her with their eyes. Her backpack suddenly felt heavier. She gripped the strap, walking faster. The sedan sped up, matched her pace. Lena's heart hammered. Don't run. Running shows fear. Just walk. Stay in public. But the street was emptier than usual. Where were the neighbors? The vendors? Even the stray dogs seemed to have vanished. The sedan circled the block, came around again from the opposite direction. Lena's breath quickened. She was 3 blocks from home, 3 blocks from safety, from Abuela, from Vincent's security detail. The sedan slowed, pulled to the curb ahead of her. Both doors opened. 2 men stepped out, casual, confident. The kind of men who'd done this before. Hey, sweetheart, one called. You're Lena, right? She didn't answer. Calculated distances, escape routes. We just want to talk. Your friend Marco? He's got some business with our boss tonight. We need you to come with us. Insurance, you know? Lena's hand slipped into her backpack, found the ball, gripped it tight. I'm not going anywhere with you. The second man smiled. Wasn't really a question, kid. They moved toward her. Lena planted her feet, cocked her arm back, and prayed that what worked once would work again. They were 10 feet away when Lena threw. The ball cut through the air with every ounce of rage and terror she'd been holding back. It caught the first man square in the nose. Cartilage crunched. Blood exploded across his face. Jesus! He stumbled backward, hands flying to his shattered nose. She broke my... Lena didn't wait. She ran. Her backpack bounced against her shoulders. Sneakers slapped pavement. Behind her, the second man cursed and gave chase. Grab her! Don't let her... Lena cut left down an alley she knew by heart, jumped a pile of trash bags, ducked under a fire escape. The man was bigger, faster, but she knew these streets. Every shortcut, every hiding spot. Run. Just run. Get home. Get to Vincent. She burst out of the alley onto Maple Street. Cars passed. People walked by. Normal Saturday afternoon chaos. Help! Lena screamed. Someone help me! Heads turned. A woman started toward her. The man caught Lena from behind, one arm wrapping around her waist, lifting her off her feet. His hand clamped over her mouth. Quiet, you little... Lena bit down. Hard. Tasted blood. The man howled, released her for just a second. Long enough for Lena to swing her backpack like a weapon. It connected with his jaw. Books, pencils. Her laptop. All of it crashed into his face with satisfying impact. He went down to one knee, stunned. Lena ran again. Harder, faster. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed, but she didn't stop. The second sedan appeared ahead of her, cutting off her route home. The door opened. The man with the broken nose stepped out, face covered in blood, eyes blazing with fury. End of the line, kid! Lena spun. The man behind her was getting up. Ahead, broken nose. To her right, a brick wall. To her left, the alley. The alley. Where this all started. Where she'd saved Marco 3 weeks ago. Her feet carried her there without thought. Instinct. Like returning to sacred ground. The alley was exactly as she remembered. Narrow, dark, brick walls on both sides. The smell of rain and old garbage. The flickering streetlight at the far end. Lena ran until she hit the back wall. Dead end. Trapped. She turned. Both men entered the alley, blocking the only exit. "Nowhere to run now," Broken Nose said through ruined cartilage. The other man cracked his knuckles. "You're going to pay for that backpack stunt, little girl." Lena's hand found her backpack again. One more ball. Just one. She'd practiced hundreds of throws with Marco. Knew her aim was true. Knew she could drop one of them. But there were two. And this time, she was alone. Thunder rumbled overhead. The sky opened up. Rain poured down like the night she'd first stepped into this alley, like the universe was telling her something. This is where it ends, where it began, and where it ends. Lena pulled out her last ball, gripped it tight, planted her feet exactly how Marco taught her. "Stay back," she warned, voice shaking but fierce. "I'm not going with you." They laughed, stepped closer. "What are you going to do?" Broken Nose mocked. "Throw another ball? We learned that lesson. This time, we're ready." Lena's arm cocked back. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might explode. Rain soaked through her jacket, ran into her eyes. "God, if you're listening, I'm really scared. I need help. Please." The men were 5 feet away, then 3. Lena squeezed her eyes shut for just a second, saw her father's face, heard his voice. "Courage isn't not being scared, Mija. It's being scared and doing what's right anyway." She opened her eyes, aimed, prepared to throw everything she had at them, knowing it wouldn't be enough, knowing she'd fight anyway, knowing... A gun cocked, sharp, unmistakable, echoing off wet brick. All 3 of them froze. "She's not alone." The voice cut through the rain like thunder, deep, familiar, carrying a promise of violence that made both men go rigid. Marco stepped out of the shadows at the alley entrance, gun raised, face carved from stone and rage. Water streamed down his scarred features, but his aim was steady. Behind him, Vincent emerged from the opposite side, weapon drawn. "Step away from the girl," Marco said quietly. "Last chance." Broken Nose laughed nervously. "You were supposed to be at the pier." Eddie talked. Marco's eyes never left them. "Turns out threatening a man's daughter is a good way to make him confess everything. Told me about the GPS jammer, the ambush, the plan to grab Lena while I was gone." "You can't take both of us," the other man tried. "Watch me." Marco took another step forward. "Now step away, or I show you exactly what happens to people who touch my family." Lightning flashed. In that frozen moment of white light, Lena saw it clearly. Marco standing where she'd stood 3 weeks ago, defending her like she'd defended him, the circle completing itself. Sometimes salvation works both ways. The men looked at each other, looked at the guns. At Marco's expression that said he was hoping, praying, they'd give him an excuse. They ran. Pushed past Marco and Vincent, sprinting into the rain. Vincent started after them. "Boss, let them go," Marco said. "They'll tell Vance I'm coming. Tell him I know about the trap. Tell him it doesn't matter." He lowered his gun, walked to Lena, dropped to one knee in front of her, rain-soaked and breathing hard. "You okay?" Lena nodded. Then she threw her arms around his neck and sobbed. All the terror, the adrenaline, the fear she'd been holding back crashed through her. Marco held her, steady, solid, safe. "I've got you," he whispered. "I've got you. You're safe now." "They were going to take me," she choked out. "They were going to—" "I know. I'm sorry. This is my fault. All of it." Marco pulled back, looked at her tear-streaked face. But I promise you, promise, nobody will ever touch you again. Not while I'm breathing. Thunder rolled, rain poured. And in that alley, the same alley where a little girl had saved a dying man, a bond forged in violence became something stronger. Family. The rain fell harder now, relentless, like the night was trying to wash away 3 weeks of blood and betrayal. But blood doesn't wash away that easily. Marco kept Lena close as they moved toward the alley entrance. Vincent had the car running, engine idling in the downpour. Get her home, Marco told him. Full detail on the apartment, nobody in or out except family. What about you? Vincent asked. I'm finishing this. Marco checked his gun. Tonight. Boss, if you go to that pier alone, I'm not going alone. Marco looked at Vincent. I'm taking the whole crew. Every man who's still loyal. Ricci wants a war. He's getting one. Lena grabbed Marco's jacket. Don't go. Please, they'll kill you. Maybe. Marco knelt down, eye level with her. But if I don't end this tonight, they'll keep coming for you. For your grandmother. For everyone I've tried to protect. This has to end. Then let the police... The police can't touch Ricci. Can't touch Vance. Marco's jaw tightened. This is my world. My mess. My responsibility to clean up. Tears mixed with rain on Lena's face. I don't want you to die. Marco's throat tightened. This child, this brave, impossibly stubborn child, cared whether he lived or died. When was the last time anyone had cared? I don't plan on dying tonight, he said gently. But if something happens, if I don't come back, you need to know something. Don't listen. Marco gripped her shoulders. You saved my life in this alley. Not just physically. You reminded me what it means to be human. To care about something beyond power and fear. You gave me a reason to be better. Marco, whatever happens tonight, that matters. You matter. Don't ever forget that. He stood, looked at Vincent. Get her out of here. Vincent nodded, started to guide Lena toward the car. She pulled free, ran back to Marco. Hugged him one more time, fierce and desperate. Come back, she whispered. Promise you'll come back. Marco held her. I promise I'll try. It was the most honest thing he'd said in years. They'd barely made it to the street when the black van screeched around the corner. Doors flew open. 6 men poured out, not the 2 from before. Fresh crew, armed, prepared. Vincent shoved Lena behind him, weapon rising. Boss! Marco spun, gun drawn. But they were outnumbered 3-1, caught in the open. Lena exposed. Back to the alley! Marco shouted. Move! They ran. Vincent carrying Lena now, moving fast despite her weight. Marco covered their retreat, firing twice to keep the Vance crew at distance. The alley swallowed them again. The same alley. Always the same alley. Vincent set Lena down, positioned himself at the entrance. They're coming! Marco checked his ammunition. 10 rounds left, against 6 men. Bad odds. This is it. This is how it ends. But then, footsteps. Multiple, coming from the far end of the alley. Marco spun, ready to fight, ready to die, protecting this child who'd given him redemption. Carlo emerged from the shadows. Behind him, Frankie. Then 8 more men from Marco's crew, all armed, all grim-faced. Boss, Carlo said. Vincent put out the call, said you needed backup. Marco stared. I thought that we'd abandoned you? Yeah, well... Carlo checked his weapon. Ricci's been pushing too hard, treating us like dogs. We joined this family for loyalty, not slavery. And family protects family. Even when family's making stupid decisions over a kid, Frankie added. Especially then, Carlo said. Because that kid's the only reason we remember what we're supposed to be protecting in the first place. The Vance crew appeared at the alley entrance, saw Marco's men, hesitated. The leader pulled out his phone, made a call, spoke quickly, hung up. Vance says to pull back, he announced. Says this isn't the time. Tell Vance, Marco called out, voice carrying across the rain-soaked alley, that I'm done running, done negotiating. Tomorrow night, Pier 17, we settle this. Him, me, and whoever wants to watch. No ambushes, no tricks. Just a final accounting. The Vance leader smiled coldly. He'll be there. With everyone. So will I. The Vance crew backed away, got in their van, drove off into the storm. Silence fell over the alley, just the sound of rain and heavy breathing. Carlo approached Marco. Boss, you realize what you just did? You declared war on both Vance and Ricci. I know. We're going to be outnumbered 10-1. I know that too. We could all die tomorrow. Yeah. Marco looked at his crew, at Vincent, at Lena, still clutching her ball, still standing despite everything. But we'll die protecting something that matters. That's more than most people in this life can say. Frankie reloaded his weapon. Guess we're doing this. Guess we are, Marco agreed. He turned to Lena, this 9-year-old who'd saved him, changed him, gave him a reason to fight for something beyond survival. Go home, he said gently. Tomorrow, you stay inside. No school, no walking around. Just stay with your grandmother until this is over. Will it ever be over? Lena asked. Marco wished he could promise her yes. Promise her safety. Promise her that violence could end cleanly. But he'd learned long ago that some storms you don't escape. You just weather them the best you can. One way or another, he said, tomorrow decides everything. Thunder rolled, lightning cracked the sky. And in that alley, where innocence had collided with darkness 3 weeks ago, a war was declared. Not for territory, not for money, not for power, for a little girl who'd reminded them all what it meant to be human. Worth every bullet, every drop of blood they'd spill tomorrow. Pier 17 stood empty under a bruised sky. Marco arrived with 12 men. Vincent drove, Carlo rode shotgun, the rest followed in 3 cars. They parked at the entrance, headlights cutting through the rain. The pier stretched ahead, concrete and rusted metal. Abandoned shipping containers stacked like forgotten monuments. At the far end, figures waited, too many to count in the darkness. Boss, Vincent said quietly, that's at least 30 men. I know. Marco chambered around. Stay close to me. Whatever happens, we protect each other. They moved forward. Rain drummed against metal. Thunder rolled across the water. Tommy Vance stood at the center, flanked by his crew. To his right, Don Ricci, arms crossed, expression cold. The alliance made flesh. Marco, Ricci's voice carried across the pier. I'm disappointed. I gave you a choice. You chose wrong. You tried to kill a child, Marco called back. There was no choice. There's always a choice. Ricci stepped forward. You chose sentiment over survival, mercy over strength, that girl over your family. She is my family. Vance laughed. How touching. The big bad enforcer found a conscience. Where was that conscience when you were breaking bones for Ricci? When you were terrorizing neighborhoods? Gone, Marco admitted. But I found it again. And I'm not losing it. Then you're losing your life. Ricci raised his hand. 30 guns rose with it. Marco's crew raised theirs, 12 against 30. The mathematics of death. Last chance, Ricci said. Walk away. Leave the city. Forget the girl. I'll let you live. Marco's answer was to raise his weapon higher. Ricci's hand dropped. Gunfire erupted. The first 3 seconds were chaos. Marco dove behind a shipping container, bullets sparking off metal around him. Vincent was beside him, returning fire. Carlo took cover behind a concrete pylon. 2 of Marco's men went down in the opening volley, then one of Vance's. Thunder cracked overhead, perfectly timed with gunfire. Rain made everything slippery, visibility terrible. Marco leaned out, fired twice, caught a Vance soldier in the shoulder. The man spun, dropped. More gunfire. A bullet grazed Marco's arm, tearing fabric and skin. He hissed, kept moving. Vincent was pinned down, 3 men advancing on his position. Marco broke cover, sprinted across open ground, bullets chasing him, slid in behind Vincent's container. Thanks, boss. Don't thank me yet. They coordinated fire, dropped 2 attackers. The third retreated. But Ricci's crew was closing in, surrounding them, superior numbers winning through attrition. Carlo went down, leg wound. Frankie dragged him to cover. 8 of Marco's men left standing, against 20-something of theirs. This was it. The mathematics finally catching up. Marco reloaded, prepared for the final push. Then, a sound cut through the gunfire, high-pitched, unmistakable. A police siren, multiple sirens, getting closer. Vance cursed. Cops! Someone called the cops! His crew started braking, running for their vehicles. Ricci's men followed. Suddenly, the alliance mattered less than not getting arrested. Within 30 seconds, the pier was emptying. Engines roared to life, tires squealed. Marco's crew didn't run. They held position, weapons ready. Vincent looked at Marco. You call the cops? No. Marco scanned the pier. But I know who did. At the far end, barely visible through the rain, a small figure stood on a container. Blue jacket, holding a phone. Lena. She'd followed them, called 911, saved them again. Marco's heart stopped. Get her out of here. Now. But Vance had seen her too. His car screeched to a halt. He leaned out the window, gun raised. The little hero, he shouted. This ends now. Everything slowed, Vance's gun aiming at Lena. Marco breaking into a run, knowing he'd never make it in time. Lena's arm cocking back, ball already in hand. The throw. It flew through rain and darkness like a guided missile. Struck Vance's windshield dead center. Glass spiderwebbed. Vance flinched. Shot went wide. Marco reached her, pulled her down behind the container as return fire sparked overhead. What are you doing here? He shouted over the chaos. Saving you, Lena shouted back. Again! Despite everything, the bullets, the rain, the death, Marco almost laughed. Police lights flooded the pier entrance. Real cops this time, responding to reports of gunfire. Ricci's car vanished into the industrial maze. Vance followed. Within minutes, the pier was empty except for Marco's crew, shell casings, and blood. And one 9-year-old girl who'd just changed the outcome of a gang war with a rubber ball and a 911 call. Marco pulled her into a fierce hug. You could have been killed. So could you. Lena's voice was muffled against his chest. I wasn't letting that happen. Thunder rolled, but the storm was passing. They'd survived. Together. The aftermath was swift. Vincent got the crew out before police could arrive in force. Carlo's leg wound needed stitches but wasn't fatal. 2 men lost, 6 wounded. Vance and Ricci had scattered like roaches when the lights came on. But Marco knew it wasn't over. Wouldn't be over until he finished what Lena had started. Time to end this, permanently, but not with bullets. With something far more devastating, the truth. Marco spent 3 days in the shadows gathering everything he needed. Eddie, desperate to make amends, proved surprisingly useful. He'd kept copies of everything: text messages, financial records, meeting notes. Insurance, he called it. Protection in case Vance or Ricci turned on him. Now it was Marco's insurance. Vincent worked his contacts in the DA's office, found a prosecutor who'd been trying to take down Ricci for years but never had enough evidence. Carlo used his tech skills to access Ricci's encrypted files, found the real books, the ones showing money laundering, offshore accounts, payments to corrupt officials. And Frankie? Frankie had the nuclear option. Security footage from Ricci's estate showing the Don orchestrating Marco's attempted murder, discussing the plan to target Lena, all of it recorded, time-stamped, undeniable. By Thursday, Marco had everything he needed to destroy Ricci's empire without firing a shot. Friday night, he went to finish it. Ricci's mansion sat on 3 acres of manicured lawn in the suburbs. Gates, guards, cameras, the fortress of a man who'd built his safety on other people's fear. Marco walked through the front gate alone. No weapons, no backup. The guards recognized him, uncertain. "Boss said you're not welcome. Tell him I'm here to talk, just talk. If he wants to shoot an unarmed man on camera, that's his choice." They made the call. 2 minutes later, the gate opened. Marco walked up the long driveway, past the fountain, up the marble steps. The front door swung open. Ricci stood in his study, drink in hand, expression amused. "Marco, you've got balls, I'll give you that. Coming here alone after everything?" "I came to make you an offer." "I'm listening." Marco pulled out a tablet, set it on Ricci's desk, pressed play. Security footage rolled, Ricci planning the alley ambush, discussing payments to Vance, ordering surveillance on Lena, approving her kidnapping. Ricci's amusement faded. "Where did you get that?" "Your own cameras." Marco pulled out a USB drive. "This contains copies of your financial records, the real ones, offshore accounts, bribe payments to judges, money laundering through shell companies, 20 years of crimes documented in obsessive detail." Ricci's hand tightened on his glass. "What do you want?" "I want you to walk away." Marco's voice was calm, steady. "Retire. Tonight. Dissolve your operations. Release every family from their debts. Turn over your territories to community trusts." "You're insane." "I'm giving you the choice you never gave me." Marco gestured to the tablet. "Option 1. You do what I'm asking. I keep this evidence locked away. You live out your days in your mansion, rich and untouchable. You just stop hurting people. Option 2. This footage goes to the FBI. The financial records go to the IRS. The witness statements go to the DA. Marco leaned forward. "And I testify. Against you. Against Vance. Against everyone who tried to hurt that little girl." Ricci stared at him. "You'd destroy yourself in the process. Testifying makes you a rat. You'd never survive." "I know." Marco's voice was quiet. "But she'd be safe. Her grandmother would be safe. Every family you've terrorized would be free. That's worth it." "You've really changed?" "Yeah, I have." Ricci walked to his window, looked out at his estate. Everything he'd built over 40 years. "That girl," he said finally, "she really did a number on you. She reminded me I was human." "Human?" Ricci laughed, bitter, tired. "In this life, being human gets you killed." "Maybe. But living like a monster kills you slower." Marco stood. "You have until tomorrow morning. Announce your retirement. Release the families, or I send everything to the authorities." "And if I come after you? After her?" Marco's expression went cold. "Then I stop being human. And I remind you why you hired me in the first place." The threat hung in the air. Ricci turned from the window, looked at Marco, really looked. Saw not the enforcer he'd trained, but something different, something he'd accidentally created by trying to destroy it. "You know what the funny thing is?" Ricci said. "I genuinely thought I was teaching you strength, thought mercy was weakness. But looking at you now," he shook his head. "Maybe I was wrong." "You were." Ricci drained his drink, set the glass down. "You'll have my answer in the morning." Marco left, walked back down the driveway, past the guards, through the gate. Behind him, Ricci's empire stood intact. For now. But foundations built on fear always crack eventually. Saturday morning, Marco's phone rang. Vincent. "Boss, turn on the news." Marco did. Breaking story. Don Ricci announces sudden retirement, cites health concerns. Multiple properties transferred to community development trusts. Outstanding debts in South District forgiven en masse. The anchor looked confused but pleased. In an unexpected move, the controversial businessman is stepping away from all operations effective immediately. Marco's phone rang again. Unknown number. He answered. Ricci's voice. "It's done. The families are free. My operations are dissolved." "But Marco?" "Yeah? That girl? You keep her safe. Because what you two have? That's rarer than you think. Don't waste it." The line went dead. Marco sat in silence, processing. He'd won. Not with violence, not with fear. With the one thing Lena had taught him mattered most. Doing what's right, even when it costs everything. Vincent appeared in the doorway. "Boss, we're really out?" "We're really out." "What now?" Marco looked at his phone, at the news coverage, at the second chance he never thought he'd get. "Now?" He smiled. "Now we build something worth protecting." 6 months later. The alley looked different in daylight. Fresh paint covered old graffiti. New streetlights replaced the flickering one. The dumpsters were gone, replaced by benches and planters with actual flowers. And at the center of it all, the mural. 20 feet high, covering the entire north wall. A little girl in a blue jacket, arm cocked back, ball frozen mid-throw. Rain rendered in blues and grays. Lightning splitting the sky behind her. And in the shadows, a figure rising from the ground, saved, reborn. Underneath, in bold letters, "Courage doesn't wait for size, it waits for the moment." Lena stood in front of it, backpack hanging from one shoulder, staring up at her own painted face. "It's weird, right?" she said. "Seeing yourself on a wall." Marco stood beside her, hands in his pockets. "It's beautiful." "Deserved." "Nobody knows it's really me, though. The artist changed my face a little. Made me look older." "Doesn't matter. You know." "I know. That's enough." The alley, their alley, had become the centerpiece of something bigger. The DeLuca Community Foundation, funded entirely by Marco's restructured assets, had transformed the entire block. The old warehouse? Now a youth center. Basketball courts, computer lab, tutoring space. Open to any kid who needed it, no questions asked. The abandoned buildings? Converted to affordable housing. Real homes for families who'd been squeezed out by landlords and loan sharks. The empty lots? Community gardens. Places where neighbors could grow food, gather, heal. Everything Marco had spent 15 years helping to destroy, he was now helping to rebuild. Lena kicked a pebble. Watched it skitter across new pavement. "People are calling you a hero. The guy who took down Ricci without violence." "I'm not a hero." "You kind of are, though." "No." Marco looked at the mural, at the girl who'd changed everything. "You're the hero. I'm just trying to keep up." The youth center doors opened. Kids streamed out, laughing, shouting. Some headed to the basketball court, others to the computer lab. A group of younger kids surrounded Lena. "Are you going to teach us today? Please, we've been practicing." Lena grinned. "Yeah, I'll teach you. Go grab the equipment." They scattered, excited. Marco watched her transform, from thoughtful and quiet to energized and commanding. She'd become a fixture at the center, teaching kids to throw, to stand up for themselves, to believe they mattered. Every Saturday, kids lined up for her pitching lessons. She was patient, encouraging, fierce when they gave up too easily, just like her father had been with her. "You're really good at this," Marco said. "At what?" "Being someone worth looking up to." Lena's cheeks flushed. "I just remember how Dad made me feel, like I could do anything. I want them to feel that too." The kids returned with balls, gloves, cones for target practice. Lena organized them with practiced efficiency, assigning positions, demonstrating form. Marco stepped back, watching. Pride swelling in his chest, the kind parents feel, the kind he never thought he'd experience. Abuela Rosa appeared beside him, arms crossed, watching her granddaughter coach. "She's happy," Rosa said. "First time since her father died that I've seen her really happy." "She earned it." "So did you." Rosa glanced at him. "You turned your life around, that's not easy." "I had a good teacher. She had a good student." Rosa's voice softened. "Thank you for protecting her, for changing, for being what she needed when I didn't know how to help her anymore." Marco's throat tightened. "She saved me first." "You saved each other." Rosa patted his arm. "That's how it's supposed to work." She headed back to her store, rebuilt, thriving, debt-free. Marco stayed, watching Lena teach a little boy how to grip the ball properly. The kid threw. Wide. Terrible form. But Lena didn't criticize, just corrected gently, demonstrated again, encouraged him to try once more. The second throw was better. The kid's face lit up. "Did you see? Did you see?" "I saw." "That was awesome! Again!" Marco smiled, pulled out his phone, took a photo, Lena surrounded by kids, all of them laughing, the mural looming behind them. He sent it to Vincent with the caption, "This is what winning looks like." Vincent's reply came immediately. "Damn right it is, boss." Thunder rumbled in the distance, but this time it was just weather, just noise, not a warning, not a threat, just the world turning. And in this corner of it, in this alley that had once been the scene of violence and despair, children were learning to throw, to laugh, to believe in themselves, all because one little girl hadn't walked away when she should have. Marco took one last look at the mural, at courage made permanent. Then he turned and headed home, knowing that for the first time in his life, he'd helped build something that would outlast him, something good, something worth the cost. 2 years later. Marco sat in his car across from the youth center, engine off, windows down. Summer evening, golden light. The sound of kids playing basketball mixed with music from someone's radio. He came here often. Not to interfere, just to watch, to make sure everything he'd built was still standing. The center had expanded, added a second floor, more programs, more kids. The wait list was 3 months long now. Other neighborhoods had started asking for help, wanting their own community centers, their own murals, their own second chances. The foundation was spreading, slow but steady, like ripples in water. And at the center of it all, Lena. She was 11 now, taller, more confident. Still wearing that blue jacket, though it actually fit her now instead of swallowing her whole. She stood on the pitcher's mound, a real one, professionally built behind the center, demonstrating technique to a group of teenagers. Her form was perfect. The throw blazed past them, struck the catcher's mitt with a sharp crack. "That's how you follow through," she called. "Your whole body commits. No hesitation, No holding back. The teens tried. Some succeeded, some failed. She corrected them all with patience and encouragement. Marco watched, pride radiating through his chest. 2 years ago, he'd been dying in an alley, ready to let go, ready to accept that his life had been wasted on violence and fear. Then she'd stepped out of the shadows, changed everything with a rubber ball and courage bigger than logic. His phone buzzed. Text from Vincent. Meeting tonight? New neighborhood wants to talk about opening a center. Marco typed back. I'll be there. Another buzz, this one from Carlo. Foundation passed the $1 million mark in donations. We're official, boss. Marco smiled, typed, We did good. Carlo, no, boss, you did good. We just followed your lead. But that wasn't true. They'd all chosen to change, chosen to build instead of destroy, chosen to believe that men who'd done terrible things could still do one good thing that multiplied into thousands. Movement caught his eye. Lena jogging over to a smaller kid sitting alone by the fence. The kid looked sad, isolated. Lena sat beside him, talked quietly. After a minute, the kid smiled, stood, joined the group. Small moment. Meaningless to anyone else. Everything to Marco. Because that's what she did. Saw people who were hurting, who were alone, who thought nobody cared. And she reminded them they mattered. She'd done it for him. Now she did it for everyone. The sun dipped lower. Practice ended. Kids scattered toward home. Lena gathered equipment, laughing with the other coaches. All volunteers, all people from the neighborhood who'd decided to give back. Community raising community. Marco's vision blurred slightly. He blinked, surprised to find moisture there. When had he become someone who cried over youth baseball practice? But he knew when. 3 years ago, in an alley, when a 9-year-old reminded him what it meant to be human. Lena headed toward the center entrance, backpack bouncing. She glanced toward his car. She always knew when he was there, and waved. Marco waved back. She smiled, gave him a thumbs up, then disappeared inside. He sat for another minute, watching the center. The mural visible on the alley wall, the kids still playing on the courts, all of it built on one moment of courage. One choice to help instead of hide. One little girl who taught a killer how to save instead of destroy. Marco started his engine, put the car in gear. His final thought before driving away, sometimes the smallest hands throw the biggest change. And that change, it doesn't end. It spreads. Person to person, block to block, life to life. All because one child refused to walk away. Family, if you felt that, if this story reminded you what courage really looks like, don't walk away without hitting that subscribe button. Because here on MCW Tales, we don't just tell stories. We remind you that one person, one choice, one moment of bravery can change everything. Lena threw a ball and saved a life. But more than that, she saved a soul. And now that soul is saving others. That's the power of courage. That's the power of refusing to stay silent when the world tells you to walk away. So whatever alley you're standing in right now, whatever darkness you're facing, remember this. The smallest hands can throw the biggest change. Be that change, family. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay brave, stay faithful, and never forget, you matter. God bless.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.